This is Brian, ScreenFiles.com in review. What I'm looking at today is The Haunting of Bly Manor, which is a Netflix show. Now, The Haunting of Bly Manor is a sequel of sorts to The Haunting of Hill House, in the sense that it's made by the same person, Mike Flanagan, but it's based on a different book. The Haunting of Hill House was based upon The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I believe that's the title of that book. But The Haunting of Bly Manor is based upon Henry James's The Turn of the Screw. And going into this, I was thinking that it would be good because Mike Flanagan, but it would in no way compare to The Haunting of Hill House, which was particularly good. And having learned that Mike Flanagan wrote, directed, and edited all the episodes of The Haunting of Hill House, while The Haunting of Bly Manor was not only not entirely written by Mike Flanagan, it wasn't directed entirely by Mike Flanagan, kind of made me wonder if this was going to live up to my expectations. I needn't have worried because it surpassed them. The Haunting of Bly Manor is a creepy, brilliant, very well done ghost story, and it just works on so many levels. What I enjoyed for a start was its opening, which uses the same music from The Haunting of Hill House, which means that you have that continuity there. It also has quite a few of the same actors from The Haunting of Hill House, which once again, continuity. It feels of a piece. It reminds me in some ways, at least structurally, of the American Horror Story series, which is to say you have different series each season, but they oftentimes have similar casts, so playing different roles. So it feels familiar even when it's new, and that's the feeling I got with The Haunting of Bly Manor. Though it is not the same story by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously based upon a different book, but the visual touches, the visual tropes that Mike Flanagan uses in some instances are similar or the same as things he's done in The Haunting of Hill House. It still comes off as its own entity. It's interesting in its own right. It's an oddly beautiful and touching series, unlike Hill House, which was good and touching in its own way. But the way that The Haunting of Bly Manor does it, it's just, there's this fairy tale quality to it. And so it's really just engaging and gripping television. Though it isn't perfect, though it is as close to it as you're likely to get from a television show. Towards the last episode, no spoilers, the way some characters refer to a certain thing gets very Star Trek-y sounding, which is really odd, but I think it could have been written better so it fit more in line with the rest of the series. It's not a big deal, it's a relatively minor thing that comes up relatively late in the 10-episode run. But it's distracting because nothing else is like it. It doesn't fit. It's less a badly written scene than a badly chosen scene, or maybe even a badly worded scene. It shouldn't have been there. It doesn't ruin it, but it does grate just a little bit, and it does sound like a Star Trek episode. It's the bizarrest thing, but luckily this type of thing doesn't happen often. And in fact, I think this one episode was the only time we heard her talk like this. So it's memorable because it's rare, and it's also memorable because it's not very good. But that's so nitpicky. On the whole, the series is touching, it's beautiful, it works so well. And as I mentioned earlier, other people are directing and writing. It's not only Mike Flanagan. Though to be fair, I believe Mike Flanagan wrote the bulk of season 1. I don't think he did it all, but he did most of it in many cases. And he definitely directed every episode. This has multiple directors, but my God, the multiple directors are so good. He's enlisted the director of A Dark Song. But if you haven't seen A Dark Song, it is brilliant and gorgeous and creepy and gritty. Great movie. The director of Eli also directed quite a few episodes. So there's a lot of talent behind the camera, writing as well as directing, and this series just works. I have no idea if there's going to be a third series of The Haunting of whatever, but I'm really hoping there is, because they're only limited by their imagination. And if they adapt the right book, I don't see how this can't work again and again and again. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com in review. Do you agree? Disagree? Let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like or a follow. Peace.